What are some company secrets you can reveal for a company you no longer work for? Story 1. Throwaway for legal reasons. I'm a former senior executive at Reckitt Benckiser, also known as RB. This is the company that owns global brands such as Vanish, Mucinex, Strepsils, Durex, Scholl, and many more, household goods and health products. First secret. RB was created from the merger of Reckitt and Coleman and Benckiser. The latter was a chemical company that made its money from selling gas to the Nazis. Some companies have admitted their part in doing this, such as BASF and Bayer, but RB has been able to bury this successfully for many years. Second secret, RB used to have a pharma division in the US that was behind a known drug, Suboxone, Subutex. These are drugs for people who are hooked to opiates. They essentially managed to convert addicts from opiates into addicts to Suboxone. All done legally, but knowing internally that they were creating more damage to consumers than the damage opiates would cause. This part of the business was spinned off a few years ago into its own company. Third secret. RB has products that do nothing. In Europe, they sell all sorts of products that have wide marketing claims, which are entirely BS. Some of these products include brands such as Finish, Durex, and Calgon. Fourth secret. RB is partly owned by the elusive Reinman family. These are a couple of very private brothers who inherited a very large share ownership into RB. Very little can be found about them, but the leadership team knew not to F with them. They had full control over the previous CEO and owned the former chairman of the board. Reckitt Benckiser is one big marketing scam after the next. They consider themselves a fast-moving consumer goods company. This means, to move fast, every year tons of new products would come to the shelves. Literally the same dog with different collar, new pack, new marketing gimmicks, and new TV campaigns. Lastly, the biggest secret of all, this is a company that has been defrauding shareholders, investors, and also fooling analysts thanks to constantly reshaping its business. If a particular area or region wouldn't have the expected results, the business would transform to maybe, say, Europe and North America are accounted as one big region. This makes it impossible for analysts to compare like-for-like results, because over the last 10 years, they've restructured the business every single year consistently to fool everyone. Story 2. I was a glazier, which is a guy who works with glass. Residential, high-rise, commercial, etc. Before I went through an accredited apprenticeship, I worked at a well-known glass shop in town. I started out doing residential work. I remember going to this lady's house, measuring her broken window, calling the office to get a quote, and they asked me, "How nice of a house is it?" I asked, "Why would that matter? Quotes are based on square footage, type of glass, and man hours." The office lady responded, "If it's a nice house, we charge more." What was embarrassing was that I was on speakerphone. How can they base a price on how nice the house is? Freaking ridiculous. The look on that old lady's face was bizarre. I was embarrassed as heck. Needless to say, she didn't use us for the install. Funny story about glass. This guy named Dan did some work at a condo in town. He installed a frameless shower door, commonly called heavy glass in the trade, and some mirrors. Within a few days, the lady who owned the condo called the shop and wanted the mirror removed from the wall. I think it had a scratch or something. Removing a mirror that had been glued to the wall can be tricky. Installing the mirror with mirror mastic, glue basically, is supposed to be done a certain way. A dollop of glue within every 12 inches, in case the mirror ever breaks, it doesn't fall off the wall. You'll have enough glue to hold up no matter where it breaks. I carefully remove this mirror in one piece, all the while the older woman is watching me in silence. When the mirror finally comes off and I set it down, I look up at the wall. Dan had drawn stick figures of a guy doing it with another person doggy style. Mirror mastic is applied from a caulking tube, so his picture looked like ancient hieroglyphics, although obvious what it was. That was an awkward conversation. Story 3. I worked at Express and Victoria's Secret for years. No employee can do anything about shoplifters. If you see someone steal something, you were supposed to go over and ask if they needed help. You could literally swipe whatever you want, quickly before they call mall security, and book it out of the store with hundreds of dollars in merchandise, and the employees can't do anything about it because they don't want to be sued. At the end of the shift, which was usually around 4 a.m., we, the employees, were bag-checked by the manager to make sure we were never stealing anything. Also, the express wall of men's professional shirts had to look immaculate before we could end our shift. made me have a totally different experience while shopping in any store, and to this day I put back whatever I can't afford to buy where I grabbed the item, and put it back where I found it, completely out of respect for the employees. Side note, while working for Express, they wouldn't let me leave on Christmas Eve until 6 a.m. because of the chaos of the earlier day. I also found out I was pregnant with my first baby, and it was a complete surprise. My manager had zero sympathy for my nauseousness. She actually told me to use breathing exercises so I wouldn't puke on the floor. I have never quit a job in my life, but making a scared pregnant lady work until the Santa Claus hours of the night made me realize these people don't give a crap about me as a 6-year employee. All they care about is having enough staff to take in the exchanges the following day. If I had a good experience and felt like I was an exemplary employee, I would have gladly shown up the day after Christmas. However, the company never showed me that respect at all. Story 4. Your kid is probably in school with someone who is super dangerous, and we often really can't do anything to protect them from other students. Even kids who are being horribly abused are hard to remove from the home. If you don't make multiple CPS reports, chances are almost 100% nothing is going to be done. Multiple people making multiple reports. Keep calling. It makes a difference. The person who tells you they had a false report of domestic violence or child abuse is almost certainly lying, except in the actually refreshingly rare cases of someone doing it as revenge. No one really wants to help vulnerable children. It's too expensive. The system isn't built for it, and it's seppuku for politicians to massively increase funding to foster care and support services. Schools just don't have the resources to deal with kids. Even within the past 10 years, there's been a massive increase in the number of kids who have mental health issues, are violent, are developmentally delayed, and need specialist attention. A few minutes with the on-site therapist isn't enough, and neither is the 15 minutes they get with the OT, occupational therapist. And again, no one wants to pay for it, but everyone wants to complain about the number of administrators required at schools. I work with a school system that had a huge increase of administrators in the past 15 years, but the reality is that most of them are needed. There's an entire department dedicated to just getting families medical services, clean clothes, school supplies, etc. We'll put on a smiling face and be nice, but the reality is that a lot of this is political. Too many families with parents who are seriously mentally ill and not able to access services. Too many families living in poverty. Too many families dealing with drug and alcohol misuse. I could go on and on. Story 5. Worked at the call center for Sprint Nextel. This was before smartphones, so tech support and customer support were relatively simple. Number 1, staff turnover was so high that you couldn't get fired no matter how bad a customer service representative you were. If you turned up on time and sat at your desk the entire shift, no one gave a care. Number 2, sometimes the exorbitant wait times were due to only having 2 people on shift for the entire network. Sometimes they were because CSRs would keep the line open after a customer disconnected to avoid taking another call. Number 3, the security identification system means jack crap. If you've ever had an ex, stalker, or anyone turn up where you live after thinking they couldn't possibly know, blame the lazy customer service representative who ignored the warning notes and security protocol and gave all your information away. Number 4, when they say they're going to put you on hold but there's no music, you're actually muted and we can hear everything you say. Number 5, customer service, billing, and tech support were all the same people. Tech support was a roulette of good, knowledgeable people. Number 6, we used to have access to customers' online accounts for tech support needs, but we could also see any texts or old-school MMS messages. Number 7, all calls are recorded. All of them. They're all stored for an indeterminate amount of time in case there's a legal need for it. Story 6. Ex-retail worked. I worked at Target and PetSmart for some time, and they both had this weird policy about stealing that I've heard applies to most big chains. Basically, a regular employee could not stop a low-price thief. Obviously, we can't let someone just walk out with a TV or live animal, but I was forbidden from doing anything about small shoplifters. It's bad for the image of the store, and if you happen to be wrong, there could be a lawsuit or discrimination accusation that could cause a lot of trouble. So most of the times they just let you walk out fully knowing you stole something. At PetSmart, I happened to be working the register when a customer came up and alerted me that there was someone stealing a bunch of dog shampoo and shoving it in her purse. The location didn't have many employees, and all the beauty supplies were kept away at the back. I called my supervisor over, and she said not to do anything. When the lady came to ring up one very small thing, the shampoos were very noticeably sticking out of her bag. My supervisor asked if she needed to pay for them, and the person said no, and we just let her walk out. Apparently, if we think someone's stealing, we're supposed to nice it out of them. If not, oh well. It's a chain store, so it's not like losing this merchandise is such a big deal, I suppose. Story 7. I ran the lens lab at a Pearl Vision back in the day. The most expensive frames we carried, the Armani's, cost us about $20 and cost you $400 to $600. The most expensive lenses, outside of real ophthalmic specialties, what we called MTPROAs, polycarbonate aspheric with anti-glare, anti-scratch, cost less than $20 and cost you $400. So a $1,000 pair of Armani glasses with all the bells and whistles, it cost about $40. The lab guy who made it was making $12 an hour. The lab itself, top of the line from Essilor, was about $250,000. Peanuts compared to the profit margin. All staff, even just sales staff, had to wear lab coats and glasses at all times. If you didn't need glasses, you just wore glasses with zero prescription. The company would provide you outright with an eye exam every year, and once per year with a pair of prescription glasses and prescription sunglasses, top of the line as long as they were in style that year. That was actually a cool perk. Oh, this was one of my favorites. In Maine at the time, MaineCare, Medicare, wouldn't cover anti-scratch coating for adults. All of our CR39, the basic plastic lens, super easy to scratch, just came with that pre-applied. We were actually supposed to intentionally strip that coating for MaineCare customers, costing us time and labor while depriving the customer. 99% of the time, we just didn't bother. Story 8. I'm in Mexico and used to work at call centers. They would ask us to always state we were located in the U.S. I worked for Comcast and Sprint Nextel, but there were some other campaigns such as HP Tech Support or AT&T or Verizon. Canada here, and almost guarantee if you don't hear background chatter, it's not because of good mics, it's because that person is most likely working from home, but still are supposed to say they are in a call center. I sell cell phones for the big 3 carriers, and you definitely know when someone's responding from home versus an actual call center. For Rogers, the rep will always start out with their intro with, "Thank you for calling Rogers, this is X speaking out of Letterkenny, Ontario." A lot of them seem like they're home-based, but it's usually a call center more often than not. Story 9. Worked in several chain restaurants through college as a cook. Nothing to report that you probably haven't heard already, but I can tell you most of the things you've been warned about are true. But the best thing I can tell you is don't go to a restaurant within 30 minutes or so of its closing time. The cooks have already cleaned in an attempt to go home. At best, you're getting the scraps left on the counter, or at worst, well, you've ticked off the cooks. Oh, and I cooked at Hooters. They literally train the waitresses on how to flirt with customers. No, they don't like you. In fact, if you're a particularly odd-looking or annoying customer, they tell the other waitresses about you, and they look at you through the kitchen windows and mock you. Story 10. I used to work in financial services. Agents would sell products based on the commission, and not on how well the investment actually performed. Our customer service department was pretty much always taking calls from people who had been deceived about what to expect from their investment. I work for the post office now, and I will honestly say I have never worked with such hard-working people before. There are problems with managers expecting you to get things done quicker than humanly possible, and a lot of our equipment is old and falling apart. But I honestly feel like the vast majority of my coworkers are trying to take care of our customers and to just get home safely. Story 11. I worked at Great Clips. The stylists are strongly advised to only cut a client's hair between 10 to 15 minutes. If the stylist's average haircut time is more than 15 to 17 minutes, they might get talked to by the manager about speeding up their services or written up if it continues to happen. Stylists also get paid based on how fast and how many clients they have that day. If a person comes in with a long, tangled rat's nest and wants a complicated haircut that takes you an hour to deal with, they can mess up your timed average for the day and mess up your pay. Story 12. Worked at PetSmart. I was actually told by a manager that it wasn't my responsibility, as a goddamn pet care associate, to tell people things like a plico, an algae-eating fish, that grows a foot long was inappropriate for a 10-gallon tank. I don't know if it was that particular PetSmart or if they're all like that, but they definitely prioritized profit margin over animal welfare. You have people like me who actually give a care, but it's just a few of us against a tidal wave of ignorance and straight-up negligent malice. I'd be curious what other PetSmart workers have experienced. Please chime in. Story 13. I worked at NASA as a contractor for 2 years. 90% of the computing hardware was very antiquated and out of date. I saw a lot of Dell computers from the mid-2000s still being used. Yes, even pre-thin style monitors, that beige or off-white color. They're pretty underfunded and spend most of their money on more advanced hardware like supercomputers, large servers, etc., but the basic hardware is really out of date. In fact, the whole place looked like a museum of the 1990s. The architecture, the dress styles, the lighting, carpet, and so on, it was very strange, almost eerie. Story 14. Verizon retail employees, and probably call center reps, are actively encouraged to lie to you to close the sale. Worked at a call center for 6 months. They were sneaky with this though. You were told the priority was the communication with the customer, but in reality, it was your sales. Even though they told you clearly the sales didn't matter, if you wanted to sell, you literally had to lie. Dealing with angry customers that had been scammed and tricked was part of the day. They didn't care because the ratio of people not realizing was way higher. Story 15. Car insurance. Your credit score is a huge factor in determining your rates. People disproportionately think it's a speeding ticket in their driving history. Sure, it does, but if you wrote 2 identical policies for identical cars with identical people in the same zip code, but a huge difference in credit score, you'd see completely disproportionate prices. Most agents don't talk about it, and in bigger national companies, they'll likely automatically escalate the call to a specialist. Story 16. Glassdoor.com does remove job reviews and does let employers choose which ones get shown first. At least they're not good at covering. It's pretty obvious when the first 2 are 5 stars, the manager's crap happy rainbows and dollar bills, and the next 10 are 1-star reviews that sound like they're written by Marines with PTSD having flashbacks to Iraq. Story 17. This is about a decade old, so maybe no longer applicable, but Microsoft has special pricing for nonprofits that is about 1/10 the regular price. They don't advertise this, so a lot of resellers still sell the software to their nonprofit customers at the regular price and enjoy the higher profit margin. Story 18. I worked at a luxury movie theater for 3 years, complete with service to your seat, oversized recliner seats, pillows, and blankets. The pillows and blankets were never washed, ever, but the break room was stocked with brand new ones. Always ask for a new blanket. Story 19. Candyman here. We left chocolate out in display cases for months on end. When my friends came by to the store, I told them to avoid it at all costs. Story 20. AT&T's customer service call center is run out of Canada. They made us say we were in the US, so I said I was in Detroit because it was across the river. Story 21. Come to Walmart Deli after 7 or 8 p.m. We mark everything down. You're welcome. As a broke student, I thank you. Story 22. Companies that deal with commercial truck driving licenses often have their drivers fudge the logbook numbers to make it look legal. Story 23. Panera Bread, all of the soups, all of them come frozen and in plastic bags. Click on one of the videos you see on the screen now, or a Karen will sue you.